Winds and flames. Choosing a marcher is, of course, a studied insult. Mistress Singawa Karadraga inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement of Lady Soretta, but did not reply to her words. Her predecessor was resplendent in a gorgeously embroidered scarlet coat, quite a contrast to her own more conservative deep blue outfit. The hand resting on the stone railing was painted with a complex and delicate webwork of crimson swirls surrounding the half-moon tattoo in the centre. Her other hand was behind her back, and for a moment Mistress Singawa considered the likelihood she was armed. She dismissed the fear. Soretta was not going to seek justice in private. It was not in her nature. She would want Singawa to admit she was wrong, where people could see it. That was not something that was going to happen. Soretta did not look at Singawa, her eyes fixed on the spectacle above. Hawks of fire and crackling eagles of lightning fought and danced across the night sky. There were scattered expressions of delight and occasional awestruck exclamations from the crowd. Lord Kinya's birthday celebration would not soon be forgotten. The 5 Flames knew that he had paid the wizards enough for this display. They destroyed Moonwater Hall. It was clear that Lady Soretta had a point to make and was not going to let Mistress Singawa's obvious disinterest prevent her from doing so. Was she needling her on purpose? That was unwise. What kind of a message does it send to the merchant families that the Empire has chosen a marcher to speak for them? I seem to recall High Lady Togeny saying something almost identical before the court last week. Singawa spoke mildly, but inwardly she was seething. Lady Soretta was treading dangerously close to telling her how to discharge her duty, and she would not stand for it. Could not stand for it. There were 6 other people desperate for her position, and any sign of weakness would leave her open to attack. Not for the first time, she reflected that ambition was the worst kind of poison. High Lady Togeny has good reason to speak as she does. Lady Soretta had still not looked at her, but had stiffened at the unspoken suggestion that she was merely a mouthpiece for Togeny. She pushed on regardless. What has the Empire ever done for us? There were gasps and shouts from the crowd, but Singawa was not really looking at the phantasmal forces sweeping across the sky between the crowds. They were merely something to rest her eyes on while she decided how to proceed. There was so much bitterness beneath Soretta's words. She knew from long experience that the former ambassador did not respect her, but had not until this moment realized how much her fury at being replaced by someone she considered beneath her had clearly been eating away at her spirit. Mistress Singawa considered whether she should pry at the cracks in Soretta's self-control. It would be a comparatively easy matter to encourage her to say something heated or to do something foolish, and then justice, denunciation, exile for the other woman, whose own position on the Court of 5 Winds was significantly more precarious than that of the liege's favourite diplomat. It would be good to see Soretta humbled. 4 decades of little slights and mocking words repaid at last. She took a firm grip on her own emotions then. Only slightly regretfully, she put the old fantasy of seeing Soretta humbled back into its box. She didn't really need to punish Lady Soretta. She was doing that to herself. Once she'd been one of the most influential people at the court, and now she ran after those like Togeny, parroted their words, terrified of losing her seat at the table, even though it was only a shadow of what she had had before. Why would we expect the Empire to do anything for us, Soretta? Singawa glanced away, watching the crowd, sensing the woman next to her stiffen as she addressed her for the first time as an equal rather than a superior. They are not Farad'n. They are not our friends. They are certainly not our family. But they are excellent customers, and they are eager to trade with us. And any merchant will tell you that when the customer is eager, that is the sound of opportunity. Soretta opened her mouth to retort, but Mistress Singawa pretended she had not noticed and continued regardless. Please, Soretta, there is no need for us to be rivals. She put just the right amount of tiredness into her voice as she spoke. We will never be friends either, I know. But we can at least be civil to each other. You were ambassador to the Empire for 2 decades. You know them better than any Farad'n I know. There is a letter from this new Marcher ambassador, and I would very much value your insight into what they are saying, and what they are leaving unsaid. She looked at the woman next to her out of the corner of her eye, saw shock give way to calculation, and smiled inwardly. She had presented just enough vulnerability to convince the older woman that she might be able to seize an opportunity of her own. She reached over and delicately laid a conciliatory hand on top of Lady Soretta's. The other woman did not shake it off. It would take careful handling, But if everything went well, she would convert Soretta from an enemy to an ally, from a threat to the liege to an asset. Not a loyal asset, but nonetheless one that could be trusted. But not a friend, obviously. Some things could never be forgiven. Farad'n. Status, foreigner. Ports, Kaitun. Ambassador, Ebenezer of the Marches. Farad'n is one of the smaller nations that neighbour the Empire, a country of merchants and wizards, proud warriors, and heretical priests who almost follow the way, but not quite. There is no shared border. The lands of the Oten lie between them, yet there is still a fair amount of trade, and has been for centuries. Relations between the two nations vary from year to year, warm one moment, cool the next, but there has never been open war between the two nations. Farad'n would rather trade. Like Axos and the Iron Confederacy, however, they are quick to see disrespect in the actions of the Empire. They know they are smaller and less powerful than their imperial neighbours, and they hate to be reminded of that fact. There is also a long tradition of religious conflict with the Imperial Synod, with priests of both nations making efforts to convert the other to their particular view of the virtues, without success. Yet there are still plenty of avenues for diplomacy between the two nations, as well as disagreement. The Imperial Conclave in particular has had many successes dealing with the Wizards of Farad'n. Recent developments have seen a major change of government and an accompanying change of attitude to the Empire. The nation has turned its back on slavery to pursue better relations with the Empire, and it seems with the opening of the first Farad'n port to Imperial ships that things can only improve. The Farad'n ambassador to the Empire is Mistress Singawa Karadraga, a relatively recent appointment who replaced the former incumbent Lady Soretta of the Red Moon at the insistence of the Liege of the Five Winds. Mistress Singawa advises the Court of the Five Winds on all diplomatic matters, not just those related to the Empire, and speaks on their behalf to foreign ambassadors. She is still relatively new to the position, and her attitude to the Empire appears to be cool but professional. A delicate relationship. The Empire currently enjoys a positive relationship with the Farad'n, despite Asavean entreaties. In summer 384 YE, the previous leader of the Farad'n was challenged and deposed in a relatively bloodless coup. Backed by a number of powerful families, repeated failures by the Court of the Five Winds to resolve the diplomatic situation with the Empire was cited as a significant motivating factor. The new Liege of the Five Winds, Shinua Gambatar, has apparently taken a keen interest in establishing better diplomatic and mercantile ties with the nation's largest neighbour. Relations with Farad'n now seem to be relatively stable, broadly positive despite a long-standing tradition of turbulence and acrimony. The destruction of Boonwater Hall in 383 YE left the Farad'n with some reservations over the appointment of a Marcher as the Imperial Ambassador. But assurances the new ambassador would arrange for the rebuilding of the hall have gone a long way to smooth over those concerns. Even without the hall, now that the dredging of the Westmere is complete, trade between Farad'n and the Empire continues to flower. Ripples in the wind. Not every Farad'n family welcomes closer ties with the Empire. There is some evidence of Asavean interference in Farad'n politics. Not all of Farad'n is keen to have closer links with the Empire. High Lady Tojanine Alsanig of Tujahan, for example, has been an implacable opponent of diplomatic links with the Empire, and she continues to decry them at every opportunity. She is allegedly a great rival of the current Liege of the Five Winds, and is said to have designs on the title herself. There is some evidence that the High Lady of the Alsanig family has a personal friendship or convenient alliance with merchants from Asavea, and has used that to embarrass the Empire at every opportunity. It is no secret that she points to the surprise attack on Chaloncio and their involvement in the murder of several prominent members of the plenum as a warning of what the Empire will do to anyone who does not obey their instructions. Thus far, High Lady Tojanine has not moved hearts or minds despite her impassioned speeches. Chaloncio and Asavea are far away, and very few Farad'n ever attempt the dangerous journey across the Sea of Snow. However, evidence of imperial involvement in the assassination of political leaders in other lands has made some of the High Lords and Ladies of Farad'n a little nervous. War is one thing, but covert murder is another matter entirely. The embassy has done its best to reassure Farad'n that these murders were a personal matter of revenge, and the ambassador's counterpart has accepted that. They view vengeance, or justice as they call it, as an important virtue, but it has done nothing to silence the High Lady. Asavean merchant ships continue to dock at Farad'n ports, and it is very clear that the plenum is doing everything it can to try and extend its influence here. It is not clear what hold they have over the High Lady, or what the nature of their relationship is, but Todgenin and her family refuse all requests for a meeting with Imperial citizens. Replacing Moonwater Hall. The Empire could build a new trade enclave in Mornwald, Mittwald, Upwald, Karaman, Segura, Calavesa, Hainmark, or Tassado. Replacing Moonwater Hall would require 20 wains of white granite, 20 wains of weirwood, and 120 crowns. Once complete, the hall would raise the level of investment of businesses in the territory by 1. The original Moonwater Hall was a Farad'n enclave that consisted of several dozen buildings, including inns, homes, blacksmiths, wheelwrights, a shrine, and a number of warehouses, as well as a large public pasture for use by oxen built near Kingstoke and Tower March. It was commissioned in summer 381 YE, with half the materials provided by the Farad'n. The hall had a troubled history and was embroiled in the conflict between the Modnos family and the Empire. It was eventually torn down in spring 384 YE after the Senate voted to abrogate Moonwater Hall, allegedly over claims that the hall was being used to spread the veneration of the malign spiritual presence of vengeance. The Farad'n protested the decision to raise the hall at the time. Restitution was eventually made to cover the Farad'n losses and the matter dropped, but the appointment of a Marcher ambassador has brought these issues to the fore again. The hall was in the Marches, and although it was a highborn senator who raised the motion to have it destroyed, a Marcher senator apparently approved of it, so there are many in Farad'n who blame the Marches for the loss. The Farad'n would like to see the hall replaced. No promises were made, but there was a suggestion that the new ambassador would do what was needed to restore trust on this issue, by either building a new trade enclave or some equivalent. Building a new trade enclave would help to promote Farad'n trade, strengthen links between the Empire and Farad'n, and mean that the matter of Moonwater Hall was dealt with once and for all. If the hall is not rebuilt, then the Empire have been warned that Farad'n merchants will openly question what it means for the relationship with the Empire if they make a Marcher their ambassador. This is exactly the sort of thing that High Lady Todgenin will point to when arguing that the Empire are not really friends of Farad'n and are not to be trusted, unlike her Asavean allies. Replacing the hall would not be cheap. It would require the commission of a great work and need 20 wains of white granite, 20 wains of weirwood, and 15 thrones in labour to complete. Last time, the Farad'n paid for half the investment, but there is no chance of that happening again after the Empire dismantled the old hall. It would take a season to build and could be constructed anywhere in the Brass Coast, or in Mornwald, Mittwald, Upwald, Hainmark, Tassado, or Calavesa. The latter may have increased labour costs due to the marshy terrain. Once complete, it would raise the level of investment in businesses in the territory by 1, as the presence of Farad'n traders brought prosperity to the territory. Of course, there is every chance that the problems that plagued the hall last time will resurface. The Farad'n recognise some of the virtues, but they don't follow the way, and they laud vengeance alongside pride, loyalty, prosperity, and courage. If a new trade enclave is built, it will likely only be a matter of time before something happens that requires graceful diplomacy by the ambassador to Farad'n. Rhinos and the Jotun problem. The Farad'n would welcome an imperial invasion of Rhinos. The Jotun are a constant threat for the Farad'n, and the Lysambrians heavily tax Farad'n caravans travelling overland through Rhinos to the Empire. The Farad'n often complain about these taxes, but they have been careful to avoid angering the Jotun. If the Jotun believed the Farad'n and the Empire were allied, they might well launch an all-out attack on Farad'n. The situation is only made more complex by the fact that the Empire did send military aid to support the Farad'n last time they were attacked by the Jotun. So the idea that they might do so again in the future is a threat the Farad'n are careful not to dispel. The ideal solution for the Farad'n would be for the Empire to take Rhinos from the Jotun, but obviously wishing for that is like wishing for the rains to fall. Even threatening the territory might help, however. An expeditionary force to test the defences might put the Jotun on the defensive. If they were focused on the possibility of an attack from the Empire, they might be less interested in threatening Farad'n caravans. If the Empire could actually conquer Rhinos, it would open up a land route directly from Farad'n to the Empire. That would make it possible for trade to flow without needing to risk the much more dangerous route through the Sea of Snow. That would likely boost taxation in every territory in the southwest of the Empire, helping to support the imperial treasury. It would help to secure the Farad'n's border and make an open alliance between the Farad'n and the Empire a viable option, should the Empire wish to push the idea. Definitely weirwood and maybe metal. Farad'n would be interested in the prospect of purchasing weirwood from the Empire, if negotiations open at 2 thrones a wain. The ambassador can complete an immediate sale of weirwood by passing the goods to the civil service and confirming the amounts by letter to their counterpart. A winged messenger sent to High Lord Mukali Shamitsi at the palace at Kaitun, Pelabahan, Menadram, Faradin is likely to be gladly received if the sender is interested in selling weirwood to the Farad. Ambassador Ebenezer invited Lord Nyamzil Gambatar of the Red Monarch Trading House to Anvil to continue discussions about outstanding business. Nyamzil is known as a relatively minor noble from the family of the Liege of the Five Winds, but Mistress Karadraga conveys their apology and the news that they are unable to travel to the Empire this time, but that they look forward to continuing their good relations with the Marcher ambassador. The Red Monarchs are far from the only mercantile option in Faradin, however. Following inquiries from the Imperial ambassador, Mistress Singawa indicates there are several groups who would be very interested in the trade of strategic resources, mithril, weirwood, and white granite. Indeed, there is a great deal of interest in purchasing weirwood from Imperial forests, assuming the price was low enough for it to be profitable for them to move it back to Faradin. She is concerned, however, that Faradin will not be able to afford Imperial prices. Weirwood, mithril, and white granite have become notoriously expensive in Imperial markets over the last decade. There is no way the Faradin could afford to pay such rates. Any Faradin trading house that was looking to buy weirwood would be unable to turn a profit if they paid much more than 2 thrones a wain. If the ambassador confirms that the Empire would be keen to negotiate with Faradin merchants looking to buy weirwood at those kind of rates, then Mistress Singawa will find the group most able to pay and ask them to approach the Empire at the autumn equinox. Indeed, there is an immediate opportunity to trade weirwood if the Imperial ambassador wishes to embrace it. The High Lord of Pelabahan and the Shamitsi family they lead are prepared to offer 50 thrones for 25 wains of weirwood to be used to improve farms across their territory. They are keen to take possession of the wains immediately, and have already made overtures to the Imperial Civil Service to assist in the trade. OOC note: if the ambassador wishes to take advantage of this, they should ensure the wains are in their inventory, and indicate in their ambassadorial letter that they wish to take advantage of the deal. Even if the ambassador does not wish to take advantage of this trade, there is nothing to stop individual Imperial citizens making contact with High Lord Mukali Shamitsi at his palace in Kaitun, either offering to provide the materials, or initiating their own potential trade with the wizardly family. After the good work done by the Celestial Arch and the Assembly of Pride last summer, the Faradin High Lord is unlikely to reject such advances. The Imperial ambassador also mentioned that they might be able to secure trade in valuable magical metal. Green iron and orichalcum are of particular interest to the warrior families of Faradin for obvious reasons. However, without an idea of the kind of price the Empire will charge, it is difficult for Mistress Singawa to arrange anything. She is happy to pass on any deal the ambassador, or indeed a private Imperial citizen, is prepared to offer that involves selling these valuable metals to the appropriate families. Silken butterflies. The blue silken scarf is interested in purchasing a bulk order of iridescent gloaming and has made an arrangement with Ephesus to support it. The ambassador can complete the sale by passing the goods to the civil service and confirming the amounts by letter to their counterpart. As the continued profitability of the gloaming road indicates, there's still interest in purchasing iridescent gloaming from Imperial forests. The drought of fine dyes that attended the iridescent butterfly drought some years ago has obviously subsided, but the Faradin will always want more. Indeed, given the Imperial ambassador's interest in trade not only of strategic resources, but also for other materials, Mistress Singawa presents a request from the Blue Silken Scarf Guild of tailors, dressmakers, and silk-weaving wizards. The guild is very interested in securing large amounts of iridescent gloaming. Rather than come to the Empire speculatively, they have asked if the ambassador might be able to arrange a shipment of no more than 150 iridescent gloaming during the summer solstice. They are prepared to pay 15 rings a measure for such a shipment, or 1 crystal mana for every 3 measures, depending on the ambassador. If the full amount can be provided in one go, they will be very interested in discussing further trade with the Empire, and perhaps visiting their Imperial counterparts to discuss matters of cloth making and fashion. OOC note: if the ambassador wishes to take advantage of this opportunity, either on their own behalf or as a broker, they need to ensure the iridescent gloaming is in their inventory at the end of the event, and confirm in their ambassadorial letter their intent to trade, how much, and whether they expect money or mana in return.